This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Perek Beis, Mishna Hey. Hu haya omer, ein bor yirei chet, v'loy ama oretz chosid, v'loy habayshan lomed, v'loy hakaptan melamed, v'loy chol hamarbe v'schora machkim. Uv'mekoyim shein anoshim, hishtadel liyos ish. The last two instructions in the Mishnah, v'loy chol hamarbe v'schora machkim. Not everybody who engages excessively in business, in matzah, matan, and schayra, machkim. Not everyone who engages in business is involved in the business world and the trading in matzah, matan. Not everyone will become a Talmid Chacham. In a place where there are no people of stature, where there are no anoshim, hishtadel liyos ish, make a supreme effort, an extra effort, to become an ish. What is the connection between these last two instructions in the Mishnah? That not everyone who engages in business, v'loy kol hamarbe v'schora machkim, and v'mokam shein anoshim hishtadel liyos ish. On a simple level, one would say that the connection is that not everyone who engages in business is going to be a Talmid Chacham. So if you're in a place where there are businessmen and there aren't Talmidei Chachamim, make a special effort and know that there is a lack of Talmidei Chachamim. The people generally are engaged in schayra, and they're not going to become Talmidei Chachamim. So you make an effort to be an exception and immerse yourself in learning and become a Talmid Chacham. But perhaps there is another connection, another explanation between these two instructions. The Medrash Shmuel points out a difference in the lashon and the language between the beginning of the Mishnah, the Reish of the Mishnah, and the Seifa, the end of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, "Ein bor yirei chet." A bor is not a yirei chet. It's unequivocal. V'loy hamaretz chosid, and an hamaretz is not a chosid. V'loy habayshan lomed. And a baishan, someone who is embarrassed to ask, he will not learn. This is unequivocal, without exception. It's definitive. V'loy kol hamarbe v'schora machkim. Now here it doesn't say v'loy hamarbe v'schora machkim. It says v'loy chol hamarbe v'schora machkim. It doesn't say it in a definitive way. It's not like v'loy hakaptan melamed, which is definitive, unequivocal, without exception. V'loy chol hamarbe v'schora machkim. Not all of those who engage in business will be machkim. Which implies that it is possible for some, albeit a minority, a miut, but it is possible for some who are engaged in schayra to be chachamim. And in fact, he brings many examples of great Tanaim, Amoyroim, and great Talmidei Chachamim, the leaders, great Gedolim, who were Isaac in Schayra. So there is an exception here. Sometimes, a person who is Isaac in Schayra, he will be Machkim. He will become a Talmid Chacham. And maybe that's the connection between these two parts of the Mishnah. V'loy chol hamarbe v'schora machkim. So, a person, if he doesn't have to be Isaac in schayra, he should immerse himself in learning. U'b'mokim she'ein anoshim, when there are not great people of stature, hishtadel liyos ish. Make a supreme effort to become an ish, which implies that if a mocha in a place where there are anoshim, then you don't have to make that effort. How do we define anoshim? How do we define ish? And perhaps the definition of ish in this context is ish ha'eshkoilas. Then we have ish adonai ha'aretz. Yosef was ish adonai ha'aretz. The ish ha'eshkoilas, that had all the attributes and all the qualities. That he was a Talmid Chacham, the Gadol, Yireh Shamayim, and he also was the one who sustained the generation. He was the mashbir. He provided for them, their sustenance. He was the ish. Ashal kol boy, everything was there. All of the attributes, he provided for all of their needs. Sometimes there is a Talmid Chacham and a leader who is the ish adonai ha'aretz, that is also the provider, and provides their sustenance, and even their physical sustenance. So, in b'makom she'ein anoshim yishtadel liyosish, in b'makom she'yesh anoshim, then you don't have to make that effort. V'lo chol hamarba b'schayra machkim. Not all who engage in schayra will become Talmid Chacham, but it is possible. And sometimes there are those who are Talmid Chachamim and even great Gedolim who are Isaac in schayra. So when do you make that choice? When is it that the Talmid Chacham is Isaac in schayra? When is it that v'lo yichol hamarba b'schayra machim, and therefore don't be Isaac in schayra? The answer is only when there is no anoshim, when there are others who can take care of the physical sustenance for the generation, for the community, for the people around you, where there are others that can take care of that, who have that responsibility, and that need is being fulfilled, then that's not your responsibility. But b'makom she'ein anoshim, when there is no one to fulfill that role, when there is a void, when there is a need which is not being fulfilled, then hishtadel liyosish, then you make the effort to become that ish adonai ha'aretz, the ish ha'eshkoilas, and to provide for the other needs of the door, the generation, the community, the family, etc. It brings to mind a Maisa that Rav Simcha Wasserman, Rav Agon of Simcha Wasserman Zatzal, told me about Rav Aaron Kotler Zatzal. And it was during the Milchama, during the time of the World War II, the Holocaust. Rav Aaron was in America, and he was trying to galvanize effort and support to try to save the neshamas, to try to save whoever could be saved from the Gehenna, from the furnaces of the Holocaust. And he went around to Rabbonim to try to galvanize their support and their kehillas to raise money and raise awareness and put pressure on the politicians. So Rav Simcha told me that he approached a certain Rav in New York, a very big Talmid Chacham, who had a very small kehillah, but it was a very big Talmid Chacham, and he was able to devote most of his time to his learning, because the needs of the kehillah were not that great. So Rav Aaron approached him to join the effort, and to speak, and to try to raise the awareness, to raise funds. And this Rav told Rav Aaron, he said, there are many rabbis in America. There are many rabbis in America who are orators, who are not spending most of their time in learning. And I'm spending most of my time in learning. And I'm not such a great public speaker. So I should be remaining and staying in my learning. Godol Talmid Torah Yoser Matzolos Nefashos. Talmid Torah is greater than Matzolos Nefashos. This is what we learn out from the end of the Megillas Esther. Godol Talmid Torah Yoser Matzolos Nefashos. So I'm Isaac in learning. I'm Isaac in learning day and night. And there are many others who aren't. So you should approach them, and I should continue with my learning. And Rav Aaron answered him and said, you're right. Talmud Torah is greater than saving lives. So if you're given a choice, and if you're asked, and if you're given a choice, which one to choose? If you have the choice, then choose Talmud Torah, because Talmud Torah is greater. But you don't have the choice. You're not being given a choice. If the Torah gave you a choice, choose Talmud Torah. When you have that choice, where you're given the choice, choose Talmud Torah, it's greater. But you're not given the choice. You don't have the choice. And in this situation, the Torah is not giving you a choice. Now is the time where you have to step forward. When there are others who can do it, when you are not needed to do it, when you have the choice, go to Talmud Torah. But sometimes we don't have the choice. And sometimes leaders, sometimes Talmidei Chachamim, sometimes they withdraw from the public eye, but sometimes they step forward. And sometimes even the greatest Gedolim are engaged in the Tzorchei Tzibur, even at the expense of their precious learning. B'mokam sheyesh anoshim, you don't have to be mishtadel to be a niche, and maybe sometimes you shouldn't. But b'mokam she'ein anoshim, hishtadel liyos ish.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.